Hello everyone, welcome to our second sew along. We're going to be making the Avril Pant. I am Amanda, I am a Ditto educator. And before we get started, I just want to say a few things. This is live, so if I have any technical difficulties, please just hang tight while I fix everything. If you have any issues, this is being recorded, so you can check it out on our page after the fact and keep sewing along. So if you're joining me, you want to make sure that your pattern is downloaded to your pattern library, and let's head over to our cutting table. Okay, so I am in the workspace, and for my Avril pants, I am making a long pair of pants because I want to show you splicing. So if you haven't spliced before, this is going to be really fun and exciting. Just some notes, your pieces may go one direction or the other. So on mine, it depends on size. So on my pants, they're going horizontally across the workspace. Yours may go vertically. So whatever you've got, don't worry, they're all the same. It's just based on size. So first thing we want to do is I'm going to turn off my lights. And let's bring our first piece in. I'm actually going to work by number order. So that's the second one here. So I'm going to bring this in. It's going to ask you to splice. I'm going to send that to my projector. Here we go. Alrighty, and I already have my fabric laid out here. So if you need to take a moment to lay it out, you should do that. I have mine doubled on my cutting table, so I am ready to go. Just making sure this is straight and where I want it to be. Great, and this is where we're gonna get out these stickers here. So these come with your Ditto, and there's two colors, there's red and white, depending on what type of fabric you're using. I'm gonna use these red ones, and we're just going to place them wherever there is a red dot shining on our fabric. Okay. And now I can cut all the way to here on either side. I'm going to stop at that point. And I'm just going to take this away. And before I move forward, this is when you want to mark your notches or any other things that you need to mark on here. So I want to mark this zipper mark. We are not doing a center zipper, but we are going to mark these little marks here. And our dart. Which there are multiple ways you can go about marking this dart. What I like to do is mark this here like this, just put my little dots, then bring in a ruler and just lightly trace this. And some people will just project this over, turn it over to get that dart, but what I like to do is just take a pin and stick it in these marks, going through both layers of fabric, and I'll show you what we're gonna do at the end. So we're gonna start this right now just to mark those darts, and then ignore that now, and we are going to move our piece over. So I'm going to move over to here. I'm going to hit that arrow to move my piece, and I'm going to send it. Okay, so now that that's shifted over, I can just slide this up and get this all matching here. And I'm using this really fun gauze, but it's a little wiggly, so I've got to spend some time getting it in the right place there. Okay, so I've got my dots marked. So now I can just finish cutting out this front piece here. If you are working with a longer piece of pant, leg, or if they're going down this way, you might have to splice one more time. So if you need to do that, take a moment to do your next round of splicing. For me, I just needed those two rounds. Okay, so this is great. I'm all cut out. I'm gonna get this out of the way for now. And I wanna go back and show you what I did with this dart. So I have it drawn on here. I can remove my stickers as well. We don't need those anymore now that we're done with this piece. So what I like to do with the dart is those little pins I have, now those marks, I just dot them with my marker. Take these pins out. And again, use my ruler to trace these lines. So that's a really easy, quick way to get your darts on both sides of your garment without having to switch over your pieces. Okay, so this one, I'm also gonna mark this as a 1 because I like to keep track of all my pieces. Okay, so my front pieces are cut. And let's move on to the back pieces. Okay, so I can clear this. I marked off that front piece, just did that. Yes, I did. And bring in that back piece here. And we're splicing this piece as well. Now this, for me, I'm doing this like fun stripe. I don't mind if they're slightly different, just because this is a flowy summery pair of pants, but if you were trying to match stripes, you would probably want to cut these individually. I'm gonna bring this over just a bit more. This piece gets pretty wide in the back here. Okay, great. Placing my stickers. And I feel good about this, so I can start cutting this as well. And we're stopping at that point again. And stopping at that point. And I'm going to mark my zipper on both sides. And you can see I just kind of turn mine over and just match it on both sides there. And do my little dots there. All right. And you want to get out your ruler and trace your dart line. And I'm doing my same little trick here to mark my darts. Okay, and let's now move our piece. So again, pressing this red arrow to get the rest of this piece on there, and I'm sending it. All right, and just gonna slide this into place. Perfect, I'm happy with that. And I can continue cutting. And I'm going to take off my stickers now. And I usually put mine back. They get a few uses. Sometimes they start getting that sticky, so as I go, I see how they do. But I'm going to put these right back so I can use them later. All right, and then I'm going to flip this over and put my little darts marks where my pins are. And then use my ruler to connect those dots. I really like that the Ditto patterns they're not just a little dart, they have those dot marks. That's really nice to be able to trace these on the other side. Lots of points to follow. Okay, and I'm also going to put a little 2 here, just so I remember that that is my back piece. Okay, let's move on to our waistband. All right, and my waistband just fits on here. I'm also going to mark that off, get in the habit of that. You may have to splice the waistband as well, so take a moment to do that if you need to. I'm going to start cutting this. And I'm going to cut mine. I want the stripe to go across my waist, so I'm going to see if I have enough here. Otherwise, I can go down to one of my other pieces here, open this up. Because we only need one of these. Yes, that's great. All right. Oh, I need to move it just a little bit. Here we go. Always good to double check. Okay. All right, now this has lots of markings, so you want to make sure you get them all. Oh, I think it cut out. Sorry about that. I'm back. We are having some storms here, so bear with me. Sorry about that. Okay. So that's cut, and we're going to do our waistband. So I'm bringing my waistband in, and this you're going to want to use an interfacing. So get that out of the way. Let's bring in our interfacing. Great. All right, so I'm cutting on my interfacing here. And this has all the same marks as our waistband piece. Oh, and we got a question. Irene asked, is that a self-healing mat that comes with a Ditto or a different mat? So this is a different mat, Irene, that I had. My cutting mat or my Ditto mat that came with it is right here, which I actually like to keep that just for calibration. I'll cut on it too, because it's made for cutting. But I just have this self-healing mat, so it's whatever you prefer. But I switch mine out since I'm doing lots and lots of cutting. Okay. So again, I'm going through and I'm marking all of this. Okay, that's great. So I've got my interfacing, I've got everything else ready and cut out. So now I'm going to turn on my lights and we can get started sewing. It's that quick. And what I like to do is I actually am getting into the habit of leaving my Ditto on as I'm cutting and doing my project, so that if I need to reference a piece or anything, I totally can. So I'm gonna bring this up just so I can iron. And the first thing I wanna do, my iron is already on, is I wanna get that interfacing onto my waistband. So I've got this here. And my ironing board is a little small, my little table one here, so I'm just gonna take a moment to get this all matched up. Here we go. That's another great reason to mark all your notches. I can use those to match that up. And I'm just going to get this on here. Okay, and do a little press on this side as well. Okay, now I am going to move to my serger here, because whenever I'm making pants, I like to finish all my edges before I get started. Sometimes you'll see when I'm making garments, I serge my pieces together after I sew them. But with my pants, I like to do it all just one piece at a time, just to finish those edges, and that way I can press everything open and have a nice crisp seam on those pants. If you don't have a serger, you're gonna want to use like a zigzag stitch, or you could be pinking. And I currently just have, I'm doing 3 threads on my serger. And it's up to you if you want to finish the edges of your pants with a serger now or later. I'm just gonna skip them just so I can do the pant hem later on its own. Sandy asked, are you using a seam iron or dry? I use a little bit of steam. You wanna read the instructions of your whatever interfacing you buy. I hope you guys can hear me over the surging. But I like to put a little steam in mine as I iron. It works well for my interfacing. So check what your interfacing says. But yeah, a little steam I feel like just makes it really secure. It also depends on your fabric. Like I'm using 100% cotton, so it can handle the steam. If you're not, then you just want to make sure you're using what's right for your fabric and your interfacing. All right, and I'm also going to go over this waist. Okay, I know 4 pieces, but this is, we're finishing our pants are gonna go together really quickly if we finish the edges at first. I'm also really excited about this machine. It's the Serger Professional 5, which also does a cover stitch. So if you sew a lot of knits like me, it's a really, really great machine because I like being able to go back and forth between serging wovens and serging knits. I'm really excited to see what everyone is making, whether you chose shorts or pants. I just really wanted to show the splicing feature. All right, we're getting there. I am not going to serge my waistband because we're gonna encase all of that and trim some of it, so there's really no reason to get that all finished up. So now I'm just gonna get to these front pieces. And again, I'm serging these just because I like to have all my pieces finished so I can get really nice flat seams, especially on the side seams of pants. You want them to be really nice. And when putting a zipper in, it's really nice to have that serge already in place. But you could be zigzagging this, or you could be pinking it. Or you could ignore me and start sewing and then finish your seams after the fact. right. And last piece. I'm really excited about this gauze, like a gauzy, this is a bubble gauze. I love that it's cotton. I really love wearing cotton in the summer, and cotton pants are just really nice when it's hot. But I love this gauzy fabric. It's really fun. But these pants you can make in anything. You could make them in a lightweight wool. I did a crinkle rayon that was really fun. All right, last serging. Awesome. Okay, so now that I have all my pieces finished, let's move to start putting it together, because I know, oh, Colette says you're so fast. Oh, thank you, Colette. I can slow down, but no. Yes, I'm serging real fast. Just got to get those edges finished. All right, so I'm going to move back to my table so we can start putting some of this together. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get all of our darts in place. So right now I'm ignoring which piece I'm working on, and let's get these out of the way. And I'm going to get my darts pinned in place here. And because I've already got my markings here, this is really easy to follow. So I'm just putting 2 pins in here. Here is another piece, so just folding in half, making sure that all my marks match up, and I can just double check here by lifting this up. And depending on how you feel, you could do 1 or 2 pins. I usually for darts do 2 pins each. Sometimes you just gotta keep moving it around so you get that dart in place. There we go. Get this one in place. Okay, and I lost a piece. Nope, there we go. Okay. Cheryl said, how much are you cutting off? On my serger, I didn't cut off any, or just the tiniest amount. I really tried not to cut any, and the reason is because we want to keep our seam allowance on here because we haven't sewn this yet. If I was sewing my pieces together, I might cut some of that seam allowance off while I'm sewing it. But these patterns are made with 5/8 of an inch, and we want to keep that because now we're going to sew it. So again, finishing these edges before you put it together is just something I like to do with my pants, just to get a nice finish there. But you do not need to do that. And yes, it does mean that you need to, one moment, I'm just getting my machine set up. It does mean that you need to make sure you're not cutting any off. I can show you here. This is just a tiny piece that I cut off. So really small, that shouldn't affect your garment, but you really do want to try, if you're finishing your edges before you sew it, you want to make sure you cut off as little as possible. Okay, so I have my machine all threaded ready to go. I'm just going to do a normal stitch. All right. And we're just starting with these darts. So with darts, I always want to do a little back tack at the top just to make sure it's really secure. And sometimes I'll, depending on my fabric, if I need to see it, we'll put a pin across as I'm going towards the dart, because then I can really see where my little bottom is. Yep. And with darts, I like to leave a little tail, and then you can tie this off later. But you don't want to cut that too short. I also don't like back stitching at the bottom of my darts because sometimes I feel like it makes a point. So I just leave a nice long little tail, and I can always tie these as I need to. So that's dart number 1. And we're just working through our 4 darts of these pants. And the marker I used washes away, so I'm not super worried about it. Okay, there we go. That's number 2 on our back there. This one got a little off, so I'm just gonna make sure I'm back on track there. There we go. I find this cutting feature on this machine makes the perfect amount of, of like dart leaving, which is really great. So love that on this machine. All right, so there's our 4 darts. So now we want to iron them. Great. And this is a really good time. I like to go around and clip some of these threads that are hanging off here because we don't want them getting caught in our stitches. So I am ironing my darts, and I like to iron them on both sides just to get a really nice crisp finish there. Okay. You know what, this is my front piece, so I'm going to iron this off to the side here. There we go. And I think I forgot to get some of these edges here, so I'm going to come back and clip some of these threads. Sometimes I just get so excited to put the garment together, I forget to clip my threads. But we're getting there. Okay. Yeah, and this is a place where you can see this fabric really moves a lot, but think it's gonna make a really nice pair of pants. I'm excited to see what everyone else does fabric-wise, what you've chosen for these lovely pants. They really are versatile. All right, so we have all of our pieces, and I'm just gonna get my little threads out of the way. And what I am going to do is put a front to a back. So I'm finding my two back pieces here. These are fronts. This is a great reason to label, but also the darts on the back are always longer. So if you're getting a little lost, the darts on the back are longer. So these are my two. I've got, or my two backs, and my right sides are facing up, and I'm just going to lay my fronts on here like this. Okay. And I'm going to work on sewing these inseams. So I want to line up my inseams. I'm going to get this one out of the way. Here. Great. And just get that started. I always like to start top and bottom and get those matched up there. And again, if you come into contact with some threads, you can clip those now. Great. Make sure that's all lined up before I start sewing. And you could use clips for this too. I tend to use clips for knits and then pins for wovens, but you can really do whatever you like to do. So let's get this one matched up as well. Should be more organized with my space here and make it clear so you can see what I'm doing. Okay. And if you see me flipping my pieces as I go to pin, it's because I want to make sure my pins, like my fabric goes in all the same way and my pins are facing towards the machine, because I like to pull them out as I'm sewing. So I just want to be able to reach and grab. Okay, so our inseams are pinned. So now we can sew these. I'm going to set this into the machine here, and we are sewing at 5/8 of an inch. And make sure to backstitch. You always want to backstitch with your garments because you don't want them to come undone, especially in this area of your pant. So I'm just using this 5/8 mark on my machine as a guide as I sew these together. And I'm just pulling my pins out as I go. Also want to backstitch at the bottom here. And on the bottom, I try to do it a little higher because I haven't finished this edge yet. And if I end up shortening this pants or anything, I just want to make sure that I'm not leaving myself with something that's going to unravel. Okay, and then we're doing this other inseam piece. So just like that other one, we're gonna line this up. We're gonna backstitch, and now we can go all the way down. Okay, great. And get those little threads out of the way. Again, I'm back stitching a little bit ahead of there. Okay, so our inseam is done. And we're going to move back to ironing. Oh, Sandy asked, what stitch length do you usually use in garment making? Sandy, it depends on your machine. I am using this heavy duty and I am currently using a 2.5 length on mine. Sometimes I'll do a 3 when I'm sewing wovens, but again, like a 3 or 2.5 on one machine can be quite different. So for this one, I feel like this is pretty tight, so I could go up to a 3 if I wanted to. When I'm doing knits, I tend to do a little bit wider or a little bit longer of a length as well. So for this one, I'd say 2.5 or 3. You don't want to go any bigger than that with a woven. All right, and right now I am just pressing my seam open here, this inseam. And see, this is why why I choose to finish my edges, because I don't have to go back and finish them. This seam is done, and it's like a super nice, smooth, flat seam here. So I'm just pressing this on both sides, and for this I am, because I'm doing a cotton, I am using steam. I have my iron set on the cotton setting. And again, if you come across threads like me, if you're not awesome at always checking and clipping them, you want to make sure you clip them at this stage. Okay, I'm giving that a good press. All right, so now that I've got those pressed, I am gonna do this center. So I'm laying this piece flat here. And now I'm laying, so this is right sides together, and I've got my fronts together and my back together here. If you were putting a fly in or a center zipper, you would not do this step next. Let's see here, I'm thinking, how I'm gonna send this into the machine. All right, here we go. So I'm just going around this curve because we are doing a side zip. I can finish up this curve here. And I like to make sure I am matching this inseam here perfectly and just working my way around. And you can also check your notches and make sure those are matching up as well. Yeah, great. Okay, and then I'm going to take this to the machine. Okay. And while I'm sewing this, I got just kick my camera, we're good. Got from Cheryl, when setting up measurements, did you have to go back and readjust after your first pattern? Or did you have to readjust any of your Ditto patterns afterwards? So yeah, Cheryl, I've made a few minor adjustments to my measurement profile over time. And what I noticed for like these, it's really helpful to take a look at how the garment says it fits. So for a lot of the pants, they are fitted, which means you don't have a lot of ease in them. They're made to be close to the body. So I've adjusted some of my measurement profiles to have like a looser fit pant. These are one where I added just a tiny bit to my hip measurement just to get the style of fit I wanted. My first pair totally fit. They fit very well actually. But I just wanted a little bit of a looser fit in the hip. So for these, I added, you can always add a little bit there. So that's a really great way to utilize your measurement profiles in Ditto, is like you can adjust how things fit by just adding little tweaks here or there. And I think it's similar to like any, paper patterns too. There's a learning curve when you start using, you find a pattern maker that you really like and you know how theirs fit, and then they'll fit slightly different than another. So it's always good to just get used to how you like your garments to fit and then adjust the system to work for you. But I've had quite a few garments that fit just perfectly from the start. I just made the ninny dress, which is like my new favorite woven dress pattern. It was absolutely perfect, and it is the cutest dress ever. So there's been quite a few that it's spot on from the beginning. Like I said, with pants, I just like a little bit of a looser fit around my hips. So as you're looking, look at those, look at how a garment is fitted, if it says fitted or semi-fitted, and just be aware of that. Okay, so I'm just sewing around this curve. Again, 5/8 seam allowance, and I'm making sure that I backstitch at the top of the bottom. Okay, and again, I'm gonna now lay these out and press some of this here. You won't be able to get around this curve completely, but you want to at least get the top and the bottom here. Especially where it's going to lay against your butt, you want that to be nice and flat, and also especially what we're putting in this waistband here, we want that to stay nice, flat, and open. Great. This is cute. Even though my stripes don't match, I like this little fun chevron I'm getting here in the back here. Okay, so once all right. So once I have this ironed, I am then going to lay this again, front and back, right sides together, like this. And I like to lay it how it's going to be on my body so I can remember what side the zipper goes. So we are going to sew the right side, our right side here, so this one, and leave this zipper side open. So right now I'm just going to pin this right side. And you can see my zipper notches on both sides, but I'm going to ignore that on this one. Okay, and we can take this to the machine. I like these pants because there's just a ton of straight stitches. Do that back stitch. All right, and let's go iron this. These pants are also really great because you can get this on the iron, which because my fabric is this cotton, it's not sliding on very well, but these pants are wide enough that you can kind of get them in place so you can iron this flat. And again, we're ironing this side seam open. All right. Okay, so I've got one pant leg done, which is awesome. And now we're going to move on to doing this invisible zipper, which I know some people get nervous about, but they can be really awesome. Oh, we got a comment from Sandy who asked, hold on one second. Since I don't own a Ditto yet, I'm curious about how detailed the directions are. Does this allow for options like making a fly front versus a side seam? Sandy, that's a really great question. Currently, this pair of pants is specifically a side seam. However, we do have several pairs of pants in the Ditto library that do have a front zip. There's, I want to say maybe it's the Vera, but maybe I'm getting that wrong. There's definitely a pair of pants that are extremely similar to this that have a fly front. We also have some patterns that are more of a slim leg that have the fly front. So I feel like you could find that option if you prefer a fly front. Okay, so invisible zipper. Let's do this. I have my invisible zipper here. And when buying zippers, it's always nice to get the size that the pattern calls for. But if you can't get the right size, it's always better to go longer. So mine is actually a 12 or 14 inch zipper. I will shorten it when we're all done. But this pattern calls for 7 to 9 inches, depending on what you got. So secret step when doing invisible zippers is you actually want to take a moment to press this. So I don't know if you could see because I'm a little further, but what I'm doing is I'm pressing this open. So your invisible zipper wants to roll. You can see here, it automatically rolls in. You want to press it open, and you'll find if your iron is a little dirty, it'll show up because you're pressing those teeth and it's picking that up. But you want to just take a moment to kind of roll this open and flat. This is gonna help you get your stitch as close as you possibly can to your garment. And once you do this step, don't go zipping your zipper back up just yet, because that's gonna push everything back. So we want to just slowly push and use our fingers to open that as we press our zipper. Okay, so I press that, it's open. Now we can get it set in our pants. What I do is just start with one side, doesn't matter which one, and you want to lay this down. So this is, my pants are going this way. I'm just going to turn this on the side so you can see. I'm going to lay this down so that pull is against the right side of my fabric. And what you want to, you can always check. What I like to do with every zipper is just roll it and be like, yep, that's exactly how I want it to look. So just lay it so that the edge of the tape is matching up with your finished edge there. And I like to bring this up just a hair because this isn't quite 5/8 of an inch. It's a little bit longer. Yeah, you've got like an inch there and we want a little bit less. So I bring this up so that my little, there's a little plastic end cap there. I want to make sure that that is 5/8. So I use this little hem ruler to make sure that my little stop ends 5/8 from the edge, because this is all going to go into my seam allowance. So once I'm happy with that placement, I'm just going to put a pin in place there. And I'm going to just turn this a little bit to make it easier for me to pin it. But I want to make sure I keep it real nice and straight, and I'm just lining it up with that edge there. All right. And another thing I'm going to do is I want to make a little mark. So I've got this zipper mark here on my pants. I want to trace that right on here. I want to make a little mark just to know that's where my zipper, where I'm sewing, needs to end. So once we get that one on, now we're going to take this to the machine. Okay, so in my machine, if you have an invisible zipper foot, now is the time to put it on. Those are fantastic. I have one on the way, but I'm going to show you how to do an invisible zipper with a regular foot. But you should totally, if you can get an invisible foot, they will make all the difference. So as I set this type of foot on my machine, I want to pay attention to how I'm sewing this. So I want to make sure that I'm sewing on this side because I want to sew kind of in this fold of the zipper. And every machine is different, so you want to check your manual or the instructions for your feet and make sure that you follow those instructions. But this is for invisible zipper, this is generally the order of things. So what I'm going to do is set this on here, and I'm honestly not going to worry about getting super close. If you were using an invisible zipper foot, that's going to get it super close for you from the start. But I am just going to start by sewing a single line. I might even set it to a bigger like basting stitch. Also, I'm using pins. You could quickly, if you wanted to, just do a hand baste in the zipper to hold this in place, especially if you're using like a woodgy, like, you know, a fabric that shifts around all over. Like, you might want to just do a quick hand baste in here. But I feel pretty good because this is a cotton just to use what I'm using. So I'm gonna sew, and because I'm using a regular foot, I'm not worrying about getting super close. I'm just kind of getting my zipper in place here. of stopping at my little point there and doing a little back stitch. Okay. And now that I got that on there, this isn't quite, like you can see here, I've still got some there that I don't want. So now I'm gonna go back and do it again. And now I'm gonna really hold this open and get as close as I possibly can here. And this, you wanna just take your time. Again, they make invisible zipper feet for this, and it's a total game changer because you'll just have to stitch this once. But since this is a short zipper, I don't mind doing this extra step here. And this is where ironing that zipper really makes a difference. So now I'm much closer to where I want to be on there. And I'm going to take a moment and clip my threads. Here and clip here. I can leave, I'll leave this little tail up here, that's fine. And then let's pin in place our other piece. So now, this is what we just did. We put that here, and this is where we want to, so now this is a time where I'm gonna bring this up just to make sure I get everything in place. So I have my zipper here, my right sides together. I'm almost like I'm doing the side seam, and I'm going to match up my notch here on this little bottom notch just to start. Get that where I'm happy for it, and up here, and I want to match my seam allowances and make sure they're even up top there. So once I get those two in place, just throw little pins in there. I'm going to check this is what I want, so I kind of open this up here, and my zipper is going to sit properly. So now I can unzip this. And now I can take the time, oop, we're twisted there, to properly pin this side now that I have my two starting points. And a note about invisible zippers, you always, like I said, it's always better to have longer than shorter. You always want a little bit of extra, like at least an inch or two left of your invisible zipper. And you'll see why in a moment. So now I can go back and I'm going to follow the same steps. I'm just going to get this pinned into place. And if you prefer to hand-based, you could do that. So I've got my zipper pinned, and I'm going to mark that stopping point on my zipper. And now I can send this through the machine. Okay. Now you might need to, oh, and if you make sure you pull your little pins out and you just have the ones you need for sewing. I am going to have to shift this foot. So again, depending on your machine, you want to get your feet set up to properly sew. Someone says they want me to try the pants on afterwards. Yes, I will post pictures. Absolutely, I will show you the pants. Okay. I want everyone to show me your pants. If you're making pants with me, or shorts or whatever, capris, we want to see them. Please share with us what you're making. All right, so like that other side, I'm not really worried about getting as close as I could be. I'm just trying to get my zipper in place here. And the more you practice zippers, the better you get. They can be tricky, but once you get them, you'll just be throwing them in, all kinds of things. Okay. All right, and because, again, I'm going to set this in again, and now I'm going to just get a little closer. And when you would do this, if you're getting really close, you just want to make sure that you're not catching the teeth, like that this isn't rolling. So you want to kind of hold your fingers in place to get as close as you can kind of in that crease without sewing your teeth. All right, and I'm gonna stop at my point. And I'm gonna cut these. All right, and then we get to check our work by zipping this up, and we have a nice invisible zipper there. So now we're gonna finish sewing. And what you wanna do, I'm gonna show you this so it's close. You're going to pin the rest of this like you're sewing. Let me flip it over here. So I'm on the wrong side here. This is my zipper and I'm just holding it out of the way. And I'm gonna start a little bit below and pin the rest of this side seam. Like I would. Matching up my bottoms here too. So sometimes I'll work top and bottom and keep going back and forth so that I make sure this all lines up properly. I suggest doing this on your cutting table. I just want to make sure you get a close-up of how to finish the bottom of that zipper because that can be a little tricky. So we're just getting the rest of that side seam pinned and together. And once you have that pinned, now we're going to come back up to here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this underneath my foot. And I'm starting about a ½ inch to an inch above that zipper mark. So I'm going to try to get my camera even closer so you can see. Sorry if the light's a little washed out. Here we go. Hopefully you can see that with the light. But I'm about an inch above my my little mark here. And I'm actually going to set the needle in 1/8 of an inch over from where I originally stitched. So I actually have a stitch line here and I'm keeping my zipper out of the way and I'm dropping my foot, and it might fight you a little bit depending on your foot, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna sew 1/8 of an inch over from that zipper line that we had. Okay, and then once we clear the zipper, now we can just keep sewing normally. And we want to, we're sewing with a 5/8 seam allowance here. And you certainly can take a moment to switch out to your regular foot. It is a little tricky to sew a straight seam with the zipper foot. It like wants to move it, but I also see the value in one single stitch instead of having it broken up. So up to you if you change that foot or you just stick with this zipper foot. Great. So now that that's dropping things, I'm going to clip these threads, make sure I clean up my zipper. And I'm not going to worry about this zipper tail. You can see for now, I'm just going to leave that till I'm all done because I just want to make sure this is all good to go. And you can see here's my zipper and here's what the bottom looks like. So that's how you get that doing that little 1/8 of an inch over and bringing it down after your zipper's already in is, oh, I'm trying to show it to you, but I'm too close. Here we go. That's the bottom of my zipper. So that's a really nice way to get that finished zipper, is actually to set the zipper in before you finish sewing that serge or sewing that seam, and then you just bring your stitch in a little outside of that zipper. All right. So let's get our waistband on. So what we want to do is, one, we want to press that that side seam. Don't forget to do that. I'm getting excited to put the waistband on, and I'm forgetting that we need to iron this. We just sewed it. Okay. So again, just keep that tail out of the way for now. You can clip it and finish it when you're done. I feel like my pants are turning out very circusy with my stripes, but I'm excited about it. Okay, so give that a nice press. And then we want to turn these right side out. And look at us, we almost have pants. Very exciting. And I want to iron the zipper before I go any further. Yeah, so that looks great. If you take the time with those invisible zippers, they can look pretty awesome. Okay, so now that I have my zipper in, I can start laying on my waistband. So I want to open this zipper because we need all this open before we get started. And we have our waistband here. And I have to remind myself, I believe this is the back. Yes, let me confirm. Center back, yes. This is why it's good to keep your instructions and your projector on so you can check. But these 3 marks here, this is your back. So I'm gonna start here with, here's my back, okay. Stripey back, this is the right side facing me. And then I've got these 3 marks, so I'm going to match this up. And I'm matching up my pieces over here. And when I'm matching up a lot of marks like this, I like to do my pins going the other way just to get myself started. It's especially good when you're going over darts. Like I might, now that this is in place, I might pin both seam allowances here, and that way my seam allowance won't come in when I'm sewing. You know how sometimes when you're sewing, your seam allowance gets pulled in and then it's facing the wrong direction. So it's nice to pin this way on something like this so that you can get all those seam allowance pressed. So I'm just working around and matching up my points here. All right. And again, I'm just pinning that dart into place so it doesn't move on me. Oh, I feel like I need to shift mine ever so slightly. A little off here. Sometimes with waistbands, you've got to There's a lot of seams at play that can be slightly off, so you just gotta work your way. If you're finding it's really off, you might want to check your measurements or cut it. I think mine just, my notches aren't matching up, but my waistband is the right size. So let's see here. Oh, okay, this is matching up here. Great. Getting back on track. I'm just shifting this down. That's the nice thing about a waistband that is a straight little rectangle. So for some odd reason, mine are a little bit off. Again, it could be the way I have my darts in here, but also make sure when you're sewing, when you're setting in your invisible zipper here, that it's rolled enough in, because we want to make sure that doesn't stay exposed. Okay, so now mine's in there. It's slightly, my notches didn't match up, but everything else fits into place. So you want to make sure in the front of your pants that you got, that there's no, one side should, sorry, one side should have 5/8 of an inch because we're going to straighten it. And the other side should have a little bit of an extension here because that's where our button's going to go. So it shouldn't match up perfectly. You should have enough here for your buttons, and then a little, just 5/8 of an inch over here for this. So once you get that pinned in place, now we're going to take it to the machine. I'm interested to see if anyone else has a waistband that their notches were slightly off. It could have been the way I was drawing it on the interfacing. Hasn't happened to me before. Okay, oh, we want to change our foot, so you want to go back to that regular foot. We are done with zippers. That went in really quick. Okay, get your threads out of the way here. And we're going to sew 5/8 of an inch on our waistband and our pants here. So just like everything else we've been doing, 5/8 of an inch. And if you pinned it the way I did, your darts will be in, and your seam allowances should be in the right place. So you just want to make sure you get close enough. I do not like sewing over my bins. Oops, sorry about that. I gotta switch, there we go. Sorry everyone. So I'm sewing my, my waistband to my pants. And what I was saying is that I don't like sewing on my pins, so as I don't think it's good for your machine. So as I go, I just slide them out. Yep. We've got pins that are sliding out here. Okay. My fabric is, there we go. Just want to make sure that I'm in the right place here. Get this all set up since this slid out. So you can always take a moment to readjust as needed. Let's put those back into place, and now I'm good to continue on. Back stitch, and I'm going to go straight off. Here we go, and I can check that I'm in good place here with this, my pants on my waistband. So now I'm going to take this to my iron, and I'm going to press this up into the waistband. So I'm pressing everything here into this waistband. All right, so pressed, that's great. You can see here, we're starting to look good on this side, like that. So next step is we want to iron up this edge. So just pushing our pants out of the way, and we want to iron up 5/8 of an inch. So you're just gonna work by just folding and measuring. Oh, my slider moved, here we go. All right, so now this is pressed. This is a time if you would like to, say you're using like a bulkier wool or something, you might want to clip this seam allowance down. So you could get in here, you could cut just your waistband material or both or one. If you have a bulky pant, if this feels kind of stiff to you, you may want to clip some of that out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just clip my waistband just to kind of stack those seam allowances and have them sit a little bit nicer here. And this is why I didn't really finish this piece earlier with an edge, because I knew I was going to cut a bunch of it out here. And take your time if you're doing this, because the last thing you want is to cut into your actual garment when you're this close to the end. And I have some places where my interfacing kind of, with that ironing, got stuck to the other seam allowance, so I'm just taking my time pulling that out and clipping it. All right, So again, this is an optional step to cut down your seam allowance, but I think it just makes a really nice crisp waistband if you get some of this seam allowance out. Especially if you're making something, like these pants are a little flowier, but if you're making something with like a cotton twill or like a light canvas or denim, you definitely want to get some of that out of there. Okay, so now we are going to fold our pieces, our edges down like this. So, and what you want to mark, so I want these two fold, let me see if I can show you a little better. On this piece, I have both this ironed up, that's what's connected to our waistband, and this ironed down. And I want to fold them so that my ironed edges match up here. So since I cut one, my seam allowance won't match. One will be longer than the other, but my folds match. And I'm going to put a pin in here and a pin in here. And I want to do the same thing on the other side of this waistband. Matching up my folds here. And this one that is closest to your zipper, this one that we don't have any extra, it's exactly 5/8. You want to make sure that you mark right where your zipper is because we want to sew right up to there to get a really nice edge. So I'm just putting 2 pins in there and I'm going to move to the machine with these two edges pinned. Okay, so now back to my machine here. And all I'm going to do is I'm just folding this all down, and I'm going to start where my stitches of my waistband are. You can see here. And I'm going to go there, just a little back stitch. And this, we're also doing 5/8 of an inch on this waistband. So our seam allowance on that is 5/8 of an inch. Okay. So that is one side here. I'm stitched right up to my zipper there, right straight up. And this you want to clip all this. So we want this to be really close, just so we don't, this is right around the area we're going to put our button, and we just don't want bulkiness around our button. And in your corner, you want to clip that corner so we really don't have much to fold over. Okay, this is also another time where you can now take some of that extra out of your zipper. So that's one side, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. However, this side, we have a little bit more than 5/8 of an inch, but we're still going to stitch 5/8 of an inch. Oop, I got to repin this because I'm a little bit caught there. So just make sure everything's in place before you go. Okay, and I'm going to set this in. And I'm sewing with 5/8 of an inch. Right. And same thing, I'm going to clip this and clip that corner. So I have a nice clean edge, and you can, this is when it starts looking really good because you can pull this out here like this. Same with this side. Something I want to show you, a little tip, 1 second. A little tip for getting crisp corners, what I like to do is take a sewing needle with a little bit of thread on it, really bury it down in there. Some fabrics puff up better than others, and just give it a tug. And that gets a really nice sharp corner there. You could also use a little tool, but I find that sometimes that can damage your fabric. So it's nice to just grab in there and tug with your thread, and then you get a really nice crisp corner. All right, so now that we've got that, let's move to back to our table. And this is where we're gonna get this all finished up. So what I'm going to do before I iron it is I want to fold everything in. And I'm trying to lay, so this is the wrong side of my pant. I'm trying to lay this waistband fold that we already did over so that it covers my stitches. So my stitches are here and I'm just gonna pull it over ever so slightly so that it's like 1/8 of an inch over. And again, I'm gonna pin my pins like this. I always use that style of pinning when I want things to really stay in place. Right, and I'm just gonna work around and fold my waistband and pin. Just like that. Okay. And we're just working our way around. And if you'll notice, I'll like skip over to a seam because I always just feel like seams are a good starting point. So I'll put a pin in there and then I can work my way back so that everything is flat and I don't get any, you know, little pieces folded over. And because we're gonna stitch in the ditch, which is, if you don't know what it is, we're going to stitch in this seam. So I'm doing more pinning than I normally would just because I want everything to stay in place as I am sewing. So lots of pins here. In my seam here. All right. Now with this side, we have this little tab here. So I just want to make sure my tab, I kind of shift my fabric so that they're even here, matching up. And I'm going to pin that really well. Oop. And I might even put a little pin there to hold that really well while I'm stitching. That's where our button's gonna go. Okay, so now that this is all pinned, I might give this a little bit of a press, not going on my pins because I don't want to melt them, but just to like really enforce that crisp top there. So just a light iron here, away from my pins and get my corners really nice. And now we can stitch that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to now flip to the right side of my fabric here. So this is the side we pinned. This is the right side. If you have little threads like I do, you want to get them out of the way. So I'm going to clip these. Now you could, if you're doing a really nice tailored pair of pants, you might want to stitch this closed by hand just so you have invisible stitches. But because this is going to be the back and the button it's going to be covered by that other tab, I'm not going to worry about it. And I'm just going to set it in. All right. And sometimes when you're going over an edge that's really bulky, sometimes you need to shift it a few times to get it in place. All right, and so now I'm going to slowly work around And my goal is to just stitch right on top of where these fabric hoops meet. So I'm really gonna take my time here sewing these. And you can use your foot as a guide, just make sure it's lined up. And if you don't like lifting up your fabric to see how I'm lifting to grab my pins as I go, you could always switch your pins to this side. But I find that I just take my time here doing this stitching in the ditch and pulling my pins out as I go. Oh, nice. Cheryl said, I usually cut my interfacing without seam allowance to correct bulk. What are your thoughts during the... Yeah, absolutely. There are certainly things that I don't want that interfacing in. I find that on a waistband, I kind of like the bulk. I like that there is some heaviness there. So in a waistband, I like that my interfacing is all the way into the inseam. Sometimes depending on what interfacing you're using also, if it's a iron-on and your fabric doesn't adhere well, and it's not sewn in, like caught into those seams, then it can like peel away over time. So I tend to, if I'm gonna sew something and not have interfacing in the seam allowance, I maybe have it 1/8 into the seam allowance. So as I stitch, I'm still catching it. So I have like 2 levels of holding that interfacing in. I have that, that fusible back holding it into place, as well as my seam to keep everything in place. But yeah, you could totally, sometimes you don't want all that interfacing, especially like I find doing facings, like neck facings and armholes. You don't want that bulk in there around your arms. So you'll take that out just in the seam allowance. And on Ditto patterns, the seam allowances are generally 5/8, so you can just mark that after the fact. So as you can see, I'm just working slowly around. I'm really taking my time because this is what's gonna show on the outside. It's like a top stitch. So I wanna just make sure I'm in a good place here. And if you're gonna do what I'm doing and pull the pins out as you go and they're underneath, just make sure you stop sewing so you don't sew your finger. Safety is important. All right, I think I got them all out. So now I'm on the last step here. All right. So I'm clipping my threads, and you can see here, now I still have some of my dots from my darts showing through, but this is how it should look if you sewed really well in that ditch here. So my waistband is done, and this is what it's gonna look like on the other side. So you can see it's just 1/8 of an inch was caught all the way through. And now we can iron this and get our button in. So my waistband just needs a good iron here. All right. And I can zip it up just to check. That's great. And now what I'm going to do is where these match up, this is where my button's going to go. So depending on what size you got, I'm just gonna do one little one here. You could do 2. So I could potentially do 2 here, but I'm just gonna put 1 up top. So what we're gonna do, we may, you wanna measure in. So I actually have my pattern is still here, projected. So I'm gonna turn my light off so you can see. It's a great reason to leave your thing here. So I can measure 5/8 of an inch because that's what I took out. And just put a little dot here. I'm just gonna, this is where my button's gonna go. All right. Okay, so everyone, putting your button holes in is gonna be a little different for everyone depending on what machine you have. I have the Singer Heavy Duty that has this little button. Oop, hold on. Here we go. I have the Singer Heavy Duty that has this little button foot here. So I slide that in because that's the size I'm going to do. And I'm pulling down this on here. Again, everyone's buttons are going to be different. And I'm going to change this to a buttonhole setting. Made sure that's pulled down, all of that. And now I'm going to place this into my machine. And I'm just going to line this up here. And depending on how your machine works, mine goes backwards. So and this machine kind of does it for you, so I'm just being a guide and watching that it does what I want. Okay, so that is my buttonhole. And I'm just going to get rid of my threads. All right, and I like using a very sharp pair of scissors just to clip this open. Okay, and then I'm going to, you can use your notches as a guide, but I like to, at this point, kind of just line mine up and see where exactly that button should land. And one moment while I grab my marker. So I'm holding this in place where I want that to go. And what I like to do is just go right into that open buttonhole and you'll get a little mark there. So that's where I'm going to sew my button. And I have a needle here and I'm going to take some of my thread from my machine because it's the color I want. Just make sure if you take it from your needle that you're leaving yourself enough of a tail for later. So what I like to do with buttons is I like to really double up my thread. So I actually folded it in half and I'm sliding the loop here into my needle and pulling it so that I've actually got 4 threads knotted and ready to go. That keeps me from having to go through my button a bunch of times. And then my button is in here, so I can just pop this out I'm gonna lay it on top here. And I actually like to, I like my knot to be underneath my button so that I have a nice pretty inside. So I kind of put the knot right on there, and then I can line up my button. And because I made these 4 threads, I really only go through my holes like this about twice. If you're gonna do it by hand, you want to go like 6 to 8 times. Like if you're gonna do it single threaded, you want lots of threads. And then as you can see, I like to wrap mine around my button to make a little bit of a shank there. And that's gonna help my fabric sit really nicely behind that button. So now I am just tying this off. And then I like to slide my needle all the way through so that my threads get caught inside that shank there. Oh, there you go. It's hard to see, and I'm clipping that. And so now I have my little button. And that. So that is my waistband is all done here. So that is the front of my pants and my little waistband. And now we are going to do the hem. So what I'm gonna do is move my camera over because I'm actually going to finish the edge here. So this is a really great time. This is when you want to try on those pants and mark the hem, unless you've made them a bunch of times and you know exactly where you want your pants to be hemmed. And the reason I wait to do the serging in the bottom until the very end is that I just like working with a clean, crisp edge, and I like locking my seam allowances flat in there. So it's just nice to focus on one step at a time. And again, if you want to try on your pants and mark the hem and then come back to this step, I highly recommend it. We are done with our serger. Again, you could be doing a zigzag or a pinking, whatever you want to do to finish it. So now we're going to iron these up, which I am going to turn off. I Ditto at the moment. So the amount of seam allowance given on these pants is 1 inch and 1/8. I believe, let me double check. Either way, whatever you are bringing this in. That's what I love about the workspace is that I just have it on my iPad and can check it whenever I need to. All right, so it is 1 inch and 1/8. So I'm gonna just fold this up a tiny bit. And I'm just ironing it. Because it's such a small amount, I'm kind of using that serge there as a measurement. So that's up to you how you measure. And it's definitely more than 1/8 of an inch here, but I know these pants are a tad bit long on me anyway, so I'm not mad about it. But you want to fold up this raw edge here. And I find that if you serge it, it gives it something for you to kind of grasp onto, which is nice. Okay, so iron this up. Depending on your fabric, like mine is all cotton, so it just presses really beautifully. All right, and I'm pressing this other side. Again, if you want to get your hem ruler out and measure it, you can, but since we're measuring a tiny amount, I'm just pressing up the serged edge. Okay. All right, so now that that edge is pressed up, I'm gonna bring up the rest of it. And this is where I do want my hem ruler. And I'm gonna set this for just 7/8 of an inch, just to, because this was about 1/4 to make up for that. So I'm just gonna go around and put some pins in, and I need to grab more pins. So again, just using my hem ruler, putting some pins in. I might actually go this way now. That'll be a little bit helpful. Okay, and I'm just working around. And if you needed to hem these, or if you're gonna check them and then hem them, you can always cut off an even amount, whatever you need. You could do something fun too if you have like you could do like a little lettuce hem on a serger. That could be kind of fun on these wide leg pants. Lots of options. Or if you're doing something more delicate, like an evening pant, you might want to do a rolled hem. But I'm just doing what is suggested, which is folding that up. All right, so that one's pinned. Let's move on to the next one. This is a lot less to hem than the Lauren top we did last time. That hemming a circle, it takes a while, but that top is really cute. If you haven't tried it yet, I highly recommend. The Lauren is a really great pattern and super cute summer top. All right, and again, just working my way around, measuring as I go. If you've been hemming a lot, you get used to kind of seeing the amount, and then the ruler more or less becomes your check, just to make sure what you see is right. Okay, so that's it. So now I'm going to take this to the machine. And I have to go back to a normal stitch and get my buttonhole stuff out of the way. There we go. Okay, get that thread out of the way, we're good. And now we are going to sew this hem. I like to work on the wrong side just so I can see what I'm doing. You could do whatever, and I'm just also going to pay attention. I'm going to, again, use my machine guide to make sure that I'm even here. And I'm making my stitch length just a little bit longer. Since I'm using this gauzy fabric, I don't want it to kind of ripple my, my pant hem. And just check it as you go if you have places where it's popping up. Because you are sewing like a slight curve, so you're going to have some, it's going to be slightly bigger there. Right, so close to being done. This is such a fun pattern and super easy to put together. I think there's a pair that's similar that has pockets that I definitely want to try next, because I love a wide leg pant in the summer. And again, if you're making shorts or capris, we want to see them. I want to see how they turned out. And when talking about hems, like I'm just doing a straight stitch here, just a simple hem, because it works for this fabric. But you could also make this a blind hem if you don't want to see it on the bottom of your pants. Because this is casual, I didn't feel like that was necessary. All right, and leg 2 now. And I always like to start on a seam. I just think that way you can hide when you overlap. And if you're wondering, I'm using the 6/8 guide here because I folded over 7/8. So that gives me just a little 1/8 of an inch top here on my hem. We're all sewn. So now, very last step is I'm going to give my hem a good press here. I'm so excited about these striped pants. They're fun. And I'll give these a wash and then another press before I wear them out, just to get some of my markings out and to get everything set in there. Also, using this gauze, when you iron it, some of that comes out. So I want some of that bubble to come back in. And you could, if you wanted to iron this, depending on your fabric, you could iron it around the ironing table, but since mine is a tabletop, it's a little easier for me to just press it on top of each other. The fabric also lends itself to that. Some fabrics you really are going to want to do, you know, one layer here to get a good press, but I'm just showing you, you'll do a good press on yours. Okay. All right, everyone, so our pants are done. These are super cute. I will be modeling them on the thread eventually. Yeah, they look, even the hem looks like it's gonna be the right level for me. So super cute. I hope you had a really good time making these pants with me. We love hearing your feedback, so get on the Ditto thread and we want to see pictures of the pants or the shorts you made. If you have ideas for other sew-alongs, I want to hear. So share with us what you're working on, especially if you made these pants with me. And thank you. See you all.